Okay guys, I'm praying in Jesus this sounds so much better than that last video. I felt bad all day, badly all day because of that video. Here I go, switching hands again. I'm going to stop it. Just keep it in my left hand. Okay. Sorry for screwing up that video yesterday, the audio. I hope this sounds a lot better. I'm trying to fix it and I will put that video at the end of this video, which hopefully will sound better so you guys who didn't get a chance to watch it because it was so muffled, hopefully it's better now. I'm still learning, but in front of this, I want to read you guys this transcript. The great people of Garland County in Arkansas sent it to me. So kind. Have I told you again how much I love Hot Springs, Arkansas? I want to get into this Jaime Phillips versus Jonathan Riches. So this is what happened actually on St. Patty's Day, March 17th. Their first hearing. It might have been the first time, I'm thinking, Jaime, also known as Magnolia, it might have been the first time after the alleged Christmas Day horrible attack that Jaime was in the same courtroom with Jonathan Lee Riches, better known now as JLR Investigates. They sent me the 2-page transcript. They do not release the court audio. That's what I was trying to get. I wanted to hear their voices and imagine. I can't imagine, Jaime, the way she must have felt facing a man she says was her attacker. So I want to go over it real quickly and then I'll let you watch that video I put up. YouTube doesn't let us replace audio, so I'll leave the old one up and hopefully I can just plop the one where the audio sounds better, I hope, at the end of this. For those of you who didn't get a chance to watch it, it was all about history, lawsuits, everything. So first let's read these 2 pages. In the Circuit Court of Garland County, Arkansas, Jaime Phillips versus Jonathan Riches. This is the big domestic case, this case that is causing so much controversy. So the proceedings, it's very brief. I heard the hearing was only about 10 minutes or less. So the court, it says, basically the judge, they are saying Jaime Phillips versus Jonathan Riches, 26 DR 2651 Division 2. Counsel is present with petitioner and counsel is present with respondent. Jaime, of course, is the petitioner. Jonathan Riches is the respondent, like we spoke about in the last video. That was his response thus far to all these allegations of mistreatment, allegations of a horrible Christmas time event out in Washington State. Now, I don't quite know for sure if this was the first time they saw each other since Christmas Day, because there are other interesting events I've uncovered for February 1st, maybe before then, so some brouhaha might have gone down in the interim. But I applaud Jaime for being able to show up in a courtroom. I can't imagine. Imagine you date a guy for 3 years. According to Jaime, he's mistreated her. All these bad things have happened. Everything kind of explodes on Christmas Day. JLR beats it out of there, beats those charges for now. I'm thinking about Jay-Z, his line, somehow I beat those charges like Rocky. Will JLR be charged with assault or we heard on the dispatch, threats to kill, all this stuff. Both lawyers were present with each person, Magnolia and JLR. All right, would you like to read your agreement into the record? So they're just reading their agreement between the two of them through their attorneys, this no contact order they both agreed to. But there's an issue of a car and there's an issue of some kind of property they're going to talk about. So the lawyer says, "Yes, Your Honor. Based upon the order of protection, clients have agreed to a 3-year, find my notes here, Your Honor. I apologize, that's literally what it says, to a 3-year no contact order against both parties. We will be asking for a car back for the parties to dispose of their personal property which will be taken, which will be held through attorneys, Your Honor." Now, they don't go into any details. Obviously, the car they were talking about, that Jeep Compass out in Washington State, we know that was a rental. That was a rental they were going to return to SeaTac, but I don't know if they actually returned it. It was a Hertz car. Is that the car that JLR took off with, and was he driving through the Dakotas, when he was 100 miles away in the middle of nowhere, as it said on the dispatch. And it doesn't quite detail which attorney is speaking. Is it JLR's car? We don't get a make, model, any kind of description. Is it JLR's car? And did Magnolia have her property in his car, personal property, which it says for the parties to dispose of their personal property? Did someone leave their stuff in a car and they wanted to destroy it? Whatever. So the court says, okay. Counsel says, I think that's about it. And then the judge says, okay, I'm continuing this to April 21st. And then just make sure you have that done before that date so that you don't have to appear. So who wouldn't have to appear? That's kind of weird. I wonder. Sometimes I know the parties don't have to appear. Sometimes the lawyers, based on certain cases, they're able to hash it out, themselves. We don't get many details. Of course, we know the April 21st date was the next date. But imagine coming into town, both of them. Well, I'm assuming Jaime lives in Arkansas somewhere, but imagine coming into town for a basically 2-minute hearing, probably lasting only a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm continuing this to April 21st, and then just make sure you have that done before that date so that you don't have to appear. Yes, Your Honor. One of the counsel says, it doesn't say which lawyer. The judge says, all right, you may be excused, and counsel says, thank you, Your Honor. I was expecting that hearing to be pretty short, but I didn't know it would be that short. And as this case unfurls, oh my goodness, people are finding out stuff. I see other creators talking about JLR's ex-wife. I was able to look her up. Naomi Leatherman was her name, before she married Jonathan Lee Riches in late 2012. According to the Unionville Times, it was a short marriage. I didn't even know he was ever married, with both parties seeking protection from abuse orders against each other by January 2013, alleging the other was dangerous. So they got married, I guess, in late 2012, and already by January 2013, they were ready to, leave the marriage, calling each other dangerous, seeking protection from abuse orders against each other. So, wow, we'll probably learn more about that. I did notice when I was looking for Naomi Riches, I saw she has a bunch of lawsuits, not as many as Jonathan, but she has lawsuits, for example, filed against Beyonce and other people. I'll throw it up on the screen. These people that Naomi has sued as well. Stay tuned. I plan to give you so much more about this case because it's obviously growing legs. More people will probably pick it up beyond the New York Post. I'm sure mainstream media is just waiting potentially for that next April 21st hearing to see what comes of that, as more evidence comes out. Before I let you listen to what I hope is better audio, I will read Isaiah 60:20. Your sun will never set again, and your moon will wane no more. The Lord will be your everlasting light, and your days of sorrow will end. Well, I thought about that verse, maybe giving Magnolia hope for any woman who's been through, or man who's been through an abusive time, a hard time, and knowing things will get better. Bravery, truth helps. Whatever the truth is, we still don't know what that truth is, but coming out and telling your story, being brave, facing the person. Jaime says she feared for her life, so facing him in court had to be daunting. She claims there was threats, ongoing threats, don't disclose this, don't come out. We still don't know all the truth. I get it. I get it. But we are learning more. So, again, I hope this sounds better. I've been Geminiing it and chat GPTing it and on the treadmill 3 miles today. I was up at 3 a.m. I don't want to be up till 3 a.m. tonight. So I want to get this edited, get it up. What's to follow is what I put up last night, or rather this morning at 3 a.m. I was so angry that the audio was muffled. So I try and boost it, but obviously I boosted it too loud and did some other machinations that didn't work out. So I hope this sounds so much clearer. Please forgive me, and hopefully you can watch it all and hear it better with the dispatch and everything. So stay tuned. If you want this transcript, I'll put it on Patreon for you guys to read yourself. And again, more stuff will be coming out as I get more of my public records requests coming in. It's like kind of telling a story, but I'm looking at what I have so far like, what happened February 1st? Why is this here? You know, when I'm asking Gemini and ChatGPT, what does this mean? And so stay tuned. As soon as I get some audio files and things that I'm expecting with this case, then you will know more about what I'm talking about. Okay, watch all of this if you didn't get a chance to watch it. Let me know. Hopefully this sounds better. What's coming up hopefully will sound better than the previous version of it. And I'll just try and get better and better and better. Thank you for always watching. Take care.
29, she has injury to her nose. We're also going to be sending aid.
Can you also add threats to kill for the ATL?
Lawsuits, lawsuits, lawsuits. Will JLR Investigate start suing YouTubers talking about him covering his most recent true crime case allegations? I doubt it.
Verify she's alone and boyfriend's not there.
Correct. Last time she talked to him, he said that he was about 100 miles away, but not sure where that is. They're not from around here.
Jonathan Lee Riches sued his mother, his father, and a lot of other people, but now he's in the hot seat. He's a defendant.
Are you still on the phone with the RP?
No.
Plunder.
Can you verify the number in the call is the RP's phone number?
No, it was her boyfriend's. He left it behind, but I did verify what the number was.
Audio.
Received. We're not getting any answer at the building nor answer on the phone.
Received. I will triple check and try and call back.
JLR Investigates has some mounting legal troubles, and he has responded. I just realized, really, today, he has responded, even though I've been covering this case for days. I've been researching it for days. And how else would he respond? Legally, of course. Has he made a public statement somewhere? Well, only through his lawyer, basically, by this motion we'll read.
K29 tried to call back that number again for me. There was no answer. But I verified that is the number that it called from, and that's what was plotting on the 911 map as well.
Received, thank you. We're trying all the different ranges at this point.
939.
I've watched plenty of coverage about Jonathan Lee Riches. He's a notoriously litigious true crime YouTuber. I'm telling you, this case has thrown me for a loop. It's had me all in my feels this weekend, just researching and waiting and waiting. I want to always bring you stuff that no other person can bring you. But any other YouTuber who might be worried, I've noticed some of them say, oh no, he's gonna sue you if you cover this case. Well, you don't have to worry about Jonathan Lee Riches suing you as long as you're reporting the truth. That's because this man, who has had the nerve to sue his own mother and father and many other people, in fact, I'll probably scroll all of his lawsuits on the screen as I'm talking. He has a limit. He has a limit on his legal filings. He can't just sue people willy-nilly, crazy stuff like he used to.
2025 Jeep Compass, 7 2026 to Hertz Vehicle 782.
Can you also add threats to kill for the ATL?
But there is one new case that he will probably really be paying attention to, and he's already responded to. We will get to his response in here and a lot about his background. I've learned so much more than I knew. But this case, 26DR 2651, Jaime T. Phillips versus Jonathan L. Riches out of Garland County in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I love Hot Springs, let me tell you. That's the one that might take him down. Hot Springs water. This water is 120 degrees, about approximately so hot that it kills the parasites. Water you can actually drink. This is amazing. Let's talk about it all. His history, his mom, his dad, his ex-girlfriend, what she has to say, how all of this brouhaha could lead to this popular YouTuber losing it all.
Female transport to the hospital, Delta 31 are en route.
2922, continue to the scene and see if you can get a statement from the RP.
Copy, that's what I'm doing.
Now, if you search Pacer like I just did for the name Jonathan Lee Riches, I wonder if I should have left out the Lee. I probably would have found more. You will find so many tax filings, lawsuits that just wasted the time of the court, the judge, taxpayer resources, more than 3,600 filings alone. If I find more, I'll scroll those on the screen too. However, it's showing that his most recent lawsuit he filed was August 3rd, 2021, according to Pacer. Now, there are more recent filings from a so-called attorney, Jonathan Riches, but I assume maybe that's a real attorney and not Jonathan Lee Riches, the YouTuber. Yes, there is a real attorney named Jonathan Riches, and he's with the Goldwater Institute. He's a different guy. I had to make sure because Jonathan Lee Riches, oh my goodness, his legal stuff is bananas. So indeed, the most recent lawsuit filed by Jonathan Lee Riches was August 3rd, 2021, according to Pacer, nearly 5 years ago. Jonathan Lee Riches, also known as JLR, JLR Investigates on YouTube. Okay, he's not completely banned, technically, from the legal system altogether, but he is one of the most heavily restricted litigants in U.S. history because of all these lawsuits. He's filed thousands of frivolous lawsuits, bizarre lawsuits. Just wait till we talk about his history with his parents. He's targeted everyone from Kim Kardashian, Donald Trump, the planet Pluto, I saw Thanksgiving, the Guinness Book of World Records. Because he's done all this and in his past caused so much trouble, courts they've implemented things to kind of block him from, lawsuit after lawsuit when he was in prison mostly. There's 69 pages worth of lawsuits. I just screenshot all of them on Pacer. I couldn't even put all of them on Facebook. It's like 137 screenshots just to see the title. So this is how he's restricted from suing. For those YouTubers I've seen, I've watched so many perspectives on this, on his recent, domestic violence case against him, these allegations. Again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We're going to talk about his ex-girlfriend. We'll talk about him, his history, his parents. But for now, don't worry about being sued, seriously. They have a 3 strikes rule under this U.S. code where JLR is basically barred from filing federal lawsuits without paying the filing fee. A lot of times I saw through there he didn't pay the filing fee. It can be several $100s. He had so many just dismissed, like this is malicious, this is frivolous. So he has to pay the filing fee in full, several $100s. I'm sure he can afford it, of course. He has to pay it up front for every new case unless he can prove somehow he's in imminent danger of serious physical injury. However, serious physical injury is what his ex-girlfriend is alleging he caused her on Christmas Day, 2025. Also, all around the country, multiple states, federal, state, district courts have labeled JLR a vexatious litigant. Just annoying, They have this permanent pre-filing injunction against him in these specific jurisdictions. That means he can't file anything new without the judge giving him permission, or in some cases, the court clerk is authorized to just automatically reject any documents JLR submits if they don't meet strict legal criteria. And then he had his mail screened. Okay, in 2010, a federal court in Kentucky went even a step further, and they enjoined Riches. That means urging him, trying to stop him from using legal or special mail to send frivolous, fraudulent documents. This order even allowed prison officials, while he was still incarcerated, to screen and return any mail of his that had, no basis in the law or fact. But that was years ago, right? It was something many of us thought, okay, that's in the past. He's paid his debt to society. He's turned over a new leaf. He talks about God. We thought he changed. But he continues to appear in court records. So as recently as this year, 2026, he's in hot water again. You might remember the video I did about Barry Morphew. JLR's name came up, he appeared again in the court documents. I have the unredacted one, Colorado, sent out at first over on Patreon. There we're showing JLR, he's streaming Barry Morphew's court hearing, messed it up for all of us, basically, all of us who wanted to watch Barry Morphew's hearings. The court was very explicit. The judge specifically said no one can live stream this. So, you know, those of us play by the rules. A lot of people who wanted to live stream it didn't. They played by the rules. JLR kept live streaming it, and as such, we got that taken away. So every time Barry Morphew appears in court, we can't watch it publicly on WebEx or anything. So let's talk about JLR versus his mom and dad. Now, while he's filed all these, thousands of lawsuits, it's a trip to me that his litigation against his own family members, oftentimes his mother, is pretty troubling. He blamed his mom, and I guess his dad too, for his legal troubles. Now, follow me. We're going to talk about this history with his mom and dad and how they got in trouble and all the case and everything, and how, to me, it plays into his most current 2026 troubles. I mean, this man is so confusing. I went through and redacted, of course, personal information. JLR has written a book on Amazon, I saw. It even starts off with confusion about when he was born. Was it December 27th? That date is pretty clear, but the year is off. It's either like, 76 or 77, depending on where you look. You'll find a lot of inconsistencies with him. The court paperwork actually says it's 1976. I don't know, his book is saying 77. If it is 76, that's important. That means he's turning 50 this year, a pivotal age. Maybe it really will be that jumping off point for change. You know how they say there's no fool like an old fool? We should learn to do better, and I'm wondering, will this be the linchpin for change? Let's talk about this case with his mother. Talk about confusion. Okay, first I thought it was Jonathan Lee Riches versus Carolyn Riches. I thought that was his mom's name, but turns out he likes to use a lot of aliases, and that's why it's so confusing. It's hard to learn unless you really, really dig what's the truth. So his mom's name is technically Donna Riches. His dad's name is Timothy Riches. Okay, so based on official Department of Justice records and this 2003 indictment I found, his mom's name is actually Donna Riches, not Carolyn. Now, the name Carolyn frequently appears because JLR has filed several lawsuits against a Carolyn Riches. We learned, he filed a lawsuit against his own mom, and I was like, how could he? So I started looking into that. I learned the details. He often identified Carolyn Riches as his mother or sister or an aunt in different filings. However, because JLR is this documented vexatious litigant known for filing thousands of fraudulent, nonsensical lawsuits, his own lawsuits are not reliable sources of fact. So the fact is, Donna Riches is his biological mom, a co-defendant in this 2003 federal fraud case, and his dad, Timothy Riches, is also a co-defendant in that same case. Let's talk about the 2003 fraud case, the family business, as it were. I found, the origins of JLR's criminal history. It was some sophisticated phishing scam and identity theft ring. JLR and his associates, they used these spam emails to trick AOL users into giving up credit card info. Back then especially, people were very gullible and not knowledgeable about being online. It's like, it wasn't the way it is now. We're learning more. 2003, I have to set it in my mind where we were digitally. 2005 is when I published my first blog post online on Blogger. Before that, 2003, I don't even know if Blogger was around. 2001, I remember the blogger Deuce. She was around. She knew HTML, and she knew how to code her own website. And, I was just learning about online publishing. So back then, JLR and his associates used this Texas driver's license template to create these fake IDs, dump stolen credit card balances into new accounts. So Timothy and Donna Riches, They were supposedly not the masterminds of this, but they were charged with conspiracy to launder money. The indictment says they helped Jonathan hide or move the proceeds of the fraud, which is pretty sad. I want to get the actual indictment itself. So 2003, that was like 20 years ago. That's when he was, what, around 30. So JLR was sentenced to 125 months. That's more than 10 years in federal prison. And that decade-long stint is where he began his career of filing thousands of handwritten lawsuits from his cell. I was like, wow, did he need attention? Like, why would he do this? It's like, to me, it's too bad he didn't use the time to, whatever, write something else. Write an entire book while you're in there. I don't know. Just do something more productive. So this lawsuit, JLR versus his parents. There's this case in Eastern District, Pennsylvania. His parents were essentially his accomplices in 2003, but his relationship with them obviously soured while he was behind bars. Jonathan sued his own parents and claiming all these different reasons. He's like, oh, they stole my identity to open these accounts. And they're like, that's an ironic claim, giving his conviction of stealing others' accounts, identity. Property claims. He alleged they sold his belongings while he was in prison and they kept the money. Did they do that? I don't know. Bizarre allegations in some of these more creative filings against his own family. He claimed they were working for the New World Order and that they had evicted him from the womb without proper notice. Oh my God, can you imagine if your son did this? Okay, the result, like most of these frivolous 4,000 lawsuits, it was dismissed as frivolous and malicious under this Prison Litigation Reform Act. So I found more info. 3 men who pleaded guilty to credit card fraud gleaned consumer information through an email spam operation run by a Dallas teenager. Now, who was the teenager? I don't know who the teenager was because, they haven't named him, but obviously JLR wasn't a teenager back then. It's kind of hard to find the actual paperwork. So this teen created spam, junk email, computer program that generated thousands of messages purporting to be from AOL, America Online, asking for all this confidential info. That's what the Assistant U.S. Attorney Nancy Herrera said. The teenager then relayed that information to Jason Michael Carpenter, 20, of Houston, who pleaded guilty to fraud, along with Michael Scott Pesky, 27, of New York, and Bernard Duzinski, 43, of Port Richey, Florida. Okay, so now this is how JLR plays in. So that Jason Michael Carpenter, the 20-year-old of Houston, Carpenter, he says he sent the information gathered by spam to Jonathan Riches of Holiday, Florida, who, along with Stephanie Costley Doyle of the same city, pleaded guilty the previous year to participating in the scheme. It says Riches used the information to order new credit cards, and Pesky and Duzinski provided him with fake driver's licenses in the credit cards' victims' names. The bogus licenses were made from a Texas license template sent by Carter, Herrera said. Okay, so here's part of the DOJ press release. U.S. Attorney Michael Shelby announced that an indictment was returned on Monday, March 24th, charging 5 persons with federal offenses arising from an alleged internet credit card fraud scheme. The 5 charged the Carpenter, Jonathan Lee Riches, so he was 26 at this point. This announcement went out. Stephanie, she's 23, both of Holiday, Florida. They were charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and launder money. Wire fraud affecting a financial institution and fraud in connection with access devices. So back then, the 26-year-old Jonathan Lee Riches, not only was he charged, but also Timothy Riches, 49, his dad, Donna Riches, then 50, both of Westchester, Pennsylvania. They were charged with conspiracy to launder money. I was trying to find out if his parents were still alive, because I've watched snippets of JLR. I don't watch it all the time. A lot of us YouTubers, we're too busy creating our own content, and if you're me, editing your own content and all this stuff to go, watch for hours and hours, but you get snippets over the years, I was like, are his parents still alive? If they are, they're both like around 73 years old this year. So the confusion stemmed on learning who the heck was JLR's mom. Was her name Donna or Carolyn? It stems from JLR's own erratic handwriting, his tendency to use aliases, just misidentify relatives, and all these pro se, he's his own attorney, filings. I guess he's not going pro se in this most recent case where his ex is alleging some pretty horrible things. We'll get there. I'm just building a basis, okay? So you'll see my thought process. So basically, if you're trying to find truth, this 2003 DOJ indictment identifying Donna as JLR's mom's name is the gold standard of accuracy. I mean, he filed so many lawsuits that, some of these case numbers, they grouped them all together into some big omnibus order due to the sheer volume of lawsuits by JLR. But this is what he says about his mother. This is what he's alleging. And remember, these are just allegations in JLR's findings, which, you can't trust at all. In anyone's court filings, their allegations are just allegations until proven in a court of law, we know. But JLR accused his mother of, quote, mental cruelty and child abuse, claiming she was responsible for him being in jail. So he included a lot of bizarre, nonsensical details, saying his parents were working with the federal agencies or celebrities to undermine him. And I was like, I gotta know more. I found out a little bit in this book. It's called Nothing is Written in Stone, a Jonathan Lee Rich's Companion. So it reads, from July 10th, 2008 through December 20th, 2008, I have received over 450 letters and phone calls from defendants requesting interviews and my side of the story. I'm assuming JLR wrote this during the time he was doing that 10-year stint. Maybe he should have stuck with just writing novels or something, instead of lawsuits. He's blaming all these defendants of these silly little stupid lawsuits that people have to defend themselves against him, but he's blaming the defendants for his troubles. He wrote, in each letter, defendants say that if I don't cooperate with them, they will write horrible negative articles about me to embarrass my character. FCI Williamsburg and the warden were sick of the defendants calling here every day and asking to speak to me, that they locked me up in solitary confinement, 24 hours a day lockdown for security reasons. We don't know if any of this is true. This is where I'm writing this suit without a typewriter. This is torture. So JLR is painting it as, okay, he's created all these frivolous lawsuits from prison, and then he's claiming the warden is sick of all these defendants calling and claiming they'll write horrible things about me, which I doubt is true. And so he's saying he's put down in lockdown 24/7 solitary confinement. I'm freezing cold, have no windows, get fed through a slot in the door like a dog, rats on my floor, anti-white graffiti on the walls, subjected to used, oversized clothing. I mean, really. I'm starving. I weigh only 119 pounds at 5 foot 10 inches. My ribs stick out. Now, that is really thin. Who knows if he got down that much. I do see through his writings in the past, though, I think he has had some kind of disordered eating issues going on, so I'm not making light of that at all. But I understand, like, 5'10", I mean, I'm around 5'10", so I can relate to, what's thin? Like, when I did competitions, the lowest I ever got as an adult was like 137, and I felt very, very thin, just thin. And this girl, Layla, on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, she's around 5'10", and she's only 100 pounds, and she has trouble with her eating patterns. But whether this is true or not, FCI Williamsburg shipping me on diesel therapy, I don't know what that is, and punishing me because of the defendant's conduct and defendant's relentless harassment of me and this facility. Defendants sent reporters to the front gates of FCI Williamsburg, camped out to try to speak to me. Defendants tried to call here posing as my sick mother. Now, he'll have more to say about his mom, but I don't know if he meant as my sick mother or as my sick mother, like she's sick, she's whatever. Or was he saying my mother who's not feeling well or going through something, I don't know. Defendants also called here saying my father died in a car accident, so the chaplain would put me on the phone. So he's like, wah, wah, wah. He was found guilty, convicted of all this spam, phishing fraud case, the impact, Lord knows what it had on all those victims, identity theft and all that. He's convicted, He gets 10 years. He's serving his 10 years. You know, does he dig into the Bible or pray to the Lord to really change his life? You know, I'll do this 10-year bid and get out of here and, you know, start a great business. That's what I thought had happened. I mean, I didn't know all this. I thought he had turned over a new leaf. You know, did he come out of there and say, you know, I'm going to be a different person? Well, no, while he was doing his bid, he was writing up lawsuits. To what end? Anyway, the lawsuit against his mom was dismissed. He accused his mother of all these horrible things like mental cruelty, bizarre claims about his upbringing, genetic traits he inherited. So, of course, that lawsuit was dismissed. At that point, a judge noticed he's filed more than 370 lawsuits in less than 2 years, so they labeled him a serial filer. I hate the actions of people who use the cops or use the legal system, anything, to trying to get their own way if they're not really going for justice, you know, if they're using it to try and get back at people. JLR's mom became the target of more lawsuits. He mentioned her frequently in multiple jurisdictions wherever he was incarcerated. If he was moved to a new facility, I guess he would sue her there. And he didn't just stop with his mom. He targeted his entire family tree. It says in various filings, riches versus riches. His parents, he's filed multiple lawsuits against his mom and dad, saying they failed to protect him or forced him into a life of crime. Now, that's not the way the indictment reads. The indictment talks about the scam, the phishing scam, and his parents knowingly, I guess, helped him just move the money. You know, did they ask him, where'd this money come from? I want to see the actual indictment because I want to know if his parents, did they know this was from a phishing scam? Or were they like, oh, you've got money from working on the computer? Or I don't know. I want to know more. Riches versus the Riches family. He filed a broad lawsuit against his extended family members, claiming they're part of some conspiracy involving the FBI and identity theft. And he even attempted to sue his ancestors and the concept of his own DNA, arguing his genetic makeup was a violation of his civil rights. So that's why JLR probably won't go suing any YouTubers anytime soon. Now I want to read just a few passages from this book. The one called Nothing is Written in Stone, because we get a bit of his history where, you know, he's complaining about all the defendants. He was claiming the defendants of all these lawsuits were trying to bribe him with money or free subscriptions to their magazines. Now FCI Williamsburg and the warden says they will not let me out of solitary confinement and told me to rot in hell as long as defendants keep calling and sending letters to the prison harassing me for an interview. I'm going to die here. I have no access to a phone or my personal property. Defendants have baby pictures and mugshots, so he went on to talk about that. But I found it interesting him talking about his autobiography. He says, my name is Jonathan Lee Riches. He was born at 6:08 p.m. 2 days after Christmas, he claims, in 1977. However, these most recent court documents from his ex-girlfriend say 1976. I don't know. He says he was born at this Chester County Hospital in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I weighed 8 pounds, 7 ounces. My mother's name is Donna Riches. That's why I was like, wait a minute, what? I thought this lawsuit said your mom's name was Carolyn Riches. So I went on this little journey. So I guess it is true. Donna Riches is his mom. Timothy Riches is his dad. He says he has one younger sibling. Her name is Carrie Riches, and she is 2 years younger than me. I wonder, first of all, who's still alive in JLR's family? I wonder are they still in contact? Do they have a healthy relationship? I wonder, you know, what they think of all these antics, his latest so-called successes, but we find out now maybe things aren't what we thought. I'm really praying about my discernment to increase after all of this I've learned. He says, I don't remember much of my life from the time I was born to the age of 5. When people say that, that is also a little worrying. If you don't remember a lot of your life from the first 5 years of your life, that concerns me. I'm always like, why? What happened? What went on? Was there something traumatic? Why are you blocking those memories? Because, you know, the earliest memories, I think I remember like my first birthday party. I remember being upset and crying. You know, start remembering these little things, going off to nursery school or what have you. Anyway, he said, I know I lived in a small duplex home in Malvern, Pennsylvania during this time period. My father was a banker with the First National Bank of Westchester. My mother worked as a secretary at the Chester County Hospital. My grandparents on my mother's side would take care of my sister and I during the day while my parents were at work. My grandparents also lived in Malvern, Pennsylvania in the country and still live in the same house to this day. Both grandparents on my mother's side are still alive. Well, back then, whenever this was written. When was this book published? That was published in 2018, so I don't know. It says my grandparents also lived in Malvern, Pennsylvania in the country and still live in the same house to this day. Both grandparents on my mother's side are still alive. Their names are Eleanor and William Davison. I have plenty of uncles, aunts, and cousins on my mother's side of the family. Growing up, I would often spend time with my grandparents on my father's side of the family. Their names were Henrietta and Robert Riches, and they lived in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Both passed away within a year of each other when I was 4 years old, so I wonder if he remembers them at all. I have numerous uncles, aunts, and cousins on my father's side of the family, though most of my childhood memories when I was very young were centered around being with my maternal grandparents. My grandparents showered me with love. So he's saying, okay, he was showered with love. I remember they had a black Labrador named Roscoe that I loved to play with. I believe I behaved normally like any other kid around that time. I don't remember playing with other kids at that time. So maybe like he seems kind of like a loner, you know, just like an aggressive, what do you call that when someone's wanting to succeed? You know what I mean? Ambitious. That's what I'm trying to think of. My mother's side of the family is Irish and English. My father's side was German. My father grew up Catholic. I remember attending Methodist church as a child. My grandparents were very religious and very active in the church community. I remember my grandparents would say prayer before every meal. I don't remember much of my actual home life up to the age of 5 because I spent most of my time at my grandparents' house while my parents were at work. Okay, well, I get that. Is he saying, okay, he doesn't remember much of his home life with his parents because he was over at his grandparents? I thought he was saying I don't remember much of the first 5 years of my life completely. When I was 5 years old, my parents bought a bigger home in Westchester, PA, located on 2 acres of woods in a very remote area. The house was 2 stories with 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. At 12 years of age, I began to change both physically and mentally. I was somewhat obese, overweight as a child, and occasionally got teased for it by my classmates and friends, so I began taking extreme measures to lose weight. I might have heard of this a little bit. I would starve myself by eating only 1 apple a day for almost a year. Now again, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I don't know what to believe here or not. I lost close to 100 pounds while going through puberty. This is when I began to see and take notice of the results that arise from taking extreme behavioral measures. So he's saying this is where it started. Okay, 12 years old, I was a little bit obese and overweight. He took it upon himself to starve himself, of course, which I don't recommend anyone doing, eating only 1 apple a day for almost a year. Is that true? Maybe that's true. So he realized if you take extreme measures, you'll get extreme results. The weight loss had negative effects on my social life as it made me extremely tired and cold. Yeah, when you're really thin, I remember that, just being so cold. My safe haven came from wrapping myself up in a heater blanket and exerting the little energy I could muster to play video games on my Nintendo. My mother gave me my own telephone line in my bedroom, and I spent many days lying in bed just calling random people locally or dialing random 1-800 numbers to hear what I had reached. So he's just dialing, it just sounds lonely. My room was my comfort zone. My parents were preoccupied with their careers and felt that I was old enough to take care of myself without a babysitter or my grandparents watching me. My mother gave me a Blockbuster video membership that I used to rent and watch movies. And that's kind of where the previews stop because I'm like, I'm not buying this book. Anyway, so we get a picture there, a little bit of picture there of loneliness, I guess. Maybe this is why I sense a need for maybe he needs attention. So now that we have that history, let's jump more towards the present. Why I think JLR won't sue YouTubers. All in all, the man who has sued everyone from Trump to Justin Timberlake to Jessica Biel to Thanksgiving and some other a lot of companies. He has probably shot himself in the foot in a way by disrespecting the court system so much. Because I was thinking if anyone actually defamed him, JLR would probably have a hard time filing a defamation lawsuit right about now. But chances are he doesn't want to file any defamation lawsuit and sit for any defamation deposition. You know, for YouTubers like me, we're covering this protection order filed against him by Jaime T. Phillips in Garland County in Arkansas. This case, again, 26 DR 2651. His prolific filing of lawsuits as a plaintiff has largely stalled due to all those legal injunctions and the 2018 federal indictment. It was horrible. This Gabby Giffords lawsuit, so one of his last major fake lawsuits involved JLR posing as Jarrett Lee Loughner. Loughner. He's the man who shot Gabby Giffords, and amazingly she survived. He was suing Gabby Giffords in 2016. I mean, she survives this horrible attack. People lost their lives. JLR sues her. I mean, she's just like recovering, traumatized, and he sues her. So JLR was indicted for making false statements in July 2018, and then he was sentenced to 5 years probation. Okay, so that's July 2018. The next month, I realized, is the first time I ever heard of him. The first time I ever heard of Jonathan Lee Riches was around August 2018. We all know what happened that month and year. I first began covering the Chris Watts case, many of us did. And of course, JLR popped up on the scene, but under false pretenses. He was pretending to be the husband of Nicole Kessinger, Chris Watts' mistress, causing confusion again. Like he just, escapes prison again with this Gabby Giffords horrible lawsuit. July 2018, he gets off with basically 5 years of probation. I'm not saying probation is easy, but he didn't have to go back to jail, right? Okay, very next month, the tragedy. Chris Watts takes the life of his pregnant wife, Shanann Watts, and their two gorgeous, wonderful children. Nico was in utero, Nico Lee Watts, and then Celeste, she was a pistol, and Bella Watts. You guys know the case. But then they found out, of course, Chris Watts is having an affair with this mistress, Nicole Kessinger. But then JLR inserts himself, and granted, I didn't put all this together that this was the same man ultimately until a while later. He inserts himself in this case in a way that's like confusing. Is Nicole Kessinger of Anadarko involved in a love triangle with Jonathan Lee Riches and Chris Watts, husband of Shanann? So he caused confusion and concern even back then, and I realized that trajectory has not changed nearly 8 years later. I thought it had. I think somewhere in there too he claimed to be a man named Michael Kelly, maybe, who was married to Nicole, and it was kind of like, wait, who is this guy? And it's like, oh no, he's just a guy trying to report on the case. Well, he was pretending to be Nicole Kessinger's husband for some reason, just to get attention. Okay, it gets views, but the problem is when you start creating these false things like that during an active criminal investigation, it's just so confusing. Anyway, somewhere in there, I guess it was Jonathan Lee Riches, and I think that's why he went down to JLR, because he knew the name Jonathan Lee Riches was mud. Okay, so then he made it JLR, and then JLR investigates. Then later it's like, oh, okay, he has turned over a new leaf. People like me started rediscovering him, and then I would hear bits and pieces. I didn't know all about the fraud case. I knew he had done time, and I was like, okay, he paid his debt to society. He says he's turned over a new leaf. He talks about God. He's one of the guys who's willing to go. He went to Gabby Petito's in-laws' house, Brian Laundrie's parents' home, and was there screaming at them. And I didn't know a lot of things until I'm seeing really deep more stuff come out. He's out there yelling and all that stuff, and it's like, okay, whatever, yeah, you're giving them the business. Hopefully it'll find out where Gabby is. It's bringing them attention. But then I see these other things coming out like, whoa, this guy was mad at him for allegedly JLR going on his property. He says he was peeking through his windows. They got into it, and JLR's like, you're going to jail, you're going to jail. I thought JLR was the calm one in certain ways, because he went over with a couple other YouTubers to the sister, Brian Laundrie's sister's home, Cassie, and Cassie and her husband walked out, and the people with JLR started screaming, how dare you, blah, blah. And JLR went, quiet, calm down, let's let her talk. And I was like, oh, look at that, he's the voice of reason. And then anytime he would be willing to cover cases, just go there. In Florida he would travel all over the country. He let other, YouTubers that stream, they would stream his stuff, no problem. I think he has a cat named, I forget his, Otis. He would buy dog food for the pets, and I'm a dog lover, I'm an animal lover. And so now I'm like, is this all a facade? Because while, you know, he's traveling to all these places, willing to live stream for hours, and, you know, the Summer Wells case, and I can just name it over the years. Case after case, it's like, ooh, you can turn on YouTube and see if anyone else is there. Oh, JLR is covering that. You know, I appreciated that. I appreciated his work ethic. I thought he had turned over a new leaf. I go in every month as part of prison ministry, and I look those women in their eyes, and, you know, they know God can change a person. I do know women who have served time. They've come out, their lives have turned around. They love God, God loves them. They lead great lives. In fact, they've done so well. They've paid so much of their debt to society, turned themselves around, their lives around so much. Some have their records expunged. They've done really wonderful things. I thought that's what we might have been looking at. So I didn't know a ton about JLR's history, but I'm like, you know, thank God for forgiving us. We fall on the rock if we're genuine. If we truly repent, which means turn from our ways and do better, you know, who am I to judge anyone? I feel like I was way wrong. Let's start talking about JLR's new troubles. So, you know, he had gotten through all those 4,000 filings, he served his time, and then he went on probation for doing that Gabby Giffords mess. Oh well, okay. That's over with. I mean, I'm seeing more anti-Semitic stuff and all this stuff I didn't really know. I think if I knew, I would have been like, whoa, you know. But still, if a person's claiming that was the old me, I'm different now, you know, I've turned over a new leaf, God has changed me, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But now these surprising new allegations come along. It's 2026 and we're still talking about trouble. I mean, the latest blip was just him live streaming, okay, whatever, the Barry Lee Morphew hearing. And I'm not trying to downplay fraud or anything like that. You know, they call them white-collar crimes. Of course, they're still victims. But we didn't have domestic violence allegations. That's what really threw me for a loop. These allegations of assault, strangulation, you know, being punched, nose broken.
Whoever comes from County West Patrol to 11 with a domestic report, call 27 also. 29, she has injury to her nose. We're also going to be sending aid.
Verify she's alone and boyfriend's not there.
Correct. Last time she talked to him, he said that he was about 100 miles away, but not sure where that is. They're not from around here.
Okay, 29. I'm in Leavenworth, so I'll stand by until 31 gets a little closer.
29, 925.
Okay, 29, we're probably in the area.
Okay, 29, 930.
Are you still on the phone with the RP?
No.
Received. And you verify the number in the call is the RP's phone number?
No, it was her boyfriend's. He left it behind, but I did verify what the number was.
Received. We're not getting any answer at the building nor answer on the phone.
Received. I will triple check and try and call back. K29 tried to call back that number again for me. There was no answer. But I verified that is the number that it called from, and that's what was plotting on the 911 map as well.
Received, thank you. We're trying all the different rings at this point.
939.
K29 Rivercom, we're making contact with the RP now. Charles Tom Adams, 6791.
K29 956. Rivercom K29 Charles Tom Adams 6791 2025 Jeep Compass 7 2026 to Hertz Vehicle 17.
Can you also add threats to kill for the ATL?
K29 1007.
Female transport to the hospital, south of 31 earn route.
2922. Continue to the scene and see if you can get a statement from the RP.
Copy, that's what I'm doing.
This has taken precedence over any fake lawsuits Richens may have filed in the past. I mean, a lot of them were off-putting, like what, the Sandy Hook stuff and all that stuff. But whoa, these new allegations, if felony charges are ever filed and JLR is ever arrested, where will it take him, his latest legal journey? Will the man who served his prison bid all those years ago in probation, I'm assuming it's over by now, and claimed he turned over this new leaf. He built a popular channel with, well, it's losing subscribers. It was down to 550,000, which is still a lot, but will he lose it all? Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is what the stuff hit the fan when this Chelan County Sheriff's Office incident report came out by his ex-girlfriend. And we're going to read a lot of her history too. I want this to be very thorough so you know the whole deal. Jaime Phillips, she was known as Magnolia online. And I feel like I've chatted with her, but I'm not sure. I didn't check my Twitter DMs. I chat with so many people and it gets confusing, especially when a person is known just by Magnolia and I didn't really know her real name. At least she puts her face online, so that helps me remember. But I chat with so many people, I don't know. I feel like I chatted with her. Or she used to comment somewhere and I was like, where's she been? You know, I felt like, oh, is she mad at me because I made that video about, you know, JLR streaming the Morphew trial? No, she was going through a lot, it alleges here. A report of assault, harassment. Now, this was reported at 9:18 a.m. on Christmas Day. People are like, oh, why'd she wait so long? Why'd she stay with him so long? So anyway, I know Magnolia from, I would catch her, you know, over the past, few years, I guess, popping up on JLR Investigates channel. I was like, oh, that's great. She's helping him research, and, you know, you'd see them in little snippets, and I thought that was wonderful. I was like, oh, cool. He's turned his life around. Look at this. He's got a girlfriend. I did wonder, I'll tell you the truth, how that would play out. Whenever I see YouTubers, over the years, I've seen so many YouTube partnerships, whether they're, you know, romantic, business, whatever. I've seen them just go to hell. I've seen them break up. That's why I'm like, solo dolo, me and Jesus, thank you. I've seen YouTubers turn on each other. I've seen mods like try and take over channels, or even partners, you know, block one or the other from their YouTube accounts and steal stuff. I mean, it's horrible. Oh, I did wonder, how's this going to work with Magnolia jumping in here, helping JLR? I wonder, how's that going to work, you know, especially financially? I did wonder about that. You know, I don't know the ins and outs of their relationship, but I did wonder, like, that could get dicey because, you know, people can get crazy. But I was really happy for him and them, and they look great, and I was like, oh, that'll be great. But no. Turns out, on Christmas Day 2025, they're off in Washington State. This beautiful place, this All Seasons River Inn in Leavenworth, Washington. It looks so beautiful, so romantic. But no, turns out it was not good, apparently. It says, the following is a summary of an incident which occurred to my recollection. So this is the detective. It serves as a summary, and then there's some Axon body-worn camera, which I've already requested. So there's a lot of stuff I have irons in the fire. Stay tuned. It says review the recording for, you know, accurate stuff. But Christmas Day, about 10:21 a.m., Deputy Talley was working uniform patrol, driving a fully marked patrol vehicle for the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. I responded to the All Seasons River Inn, located in Leavenworth, Washington, for a report of an assault. The victim reporting party identified herself as Jaime Phillips. She told dispatch she received an injury to her nose from a fight last night with her boyfriend, Jonathan Riches. So it's Christmas Day, and it's like the fight was last night, she claimed, and people are like, well, why did she wait? Why didn't she call right away? Turns out, I guess he took her phone. Rivercom was also informed Jonathan had taken Jamie's phone and left last night. If that's true, why did he take her phone? Did he take it because he knew she was, you know, calling 911, and to prevent her from calling 911? Did she have evidence on her phone? It says, I arrived at the location at the same time as aide. We contacted Jaime at the main entrance door. I could visibly see bruising around Jamie's right eye. Oh, that's my right eye. Consistent with being in the early stages of a black eye. I could also see a small red mark on the upper right corner bridge of Jamie's nose. And I hate the way people already are like, oh, she could have done that to herself. Now, of course, I have to keep an open mind. I believe Jaime. Let me just tell you, I believe her. Still, I have to keep an open mind, as if I were sitting on a jury. Yeah, she could have gone girled it, you know, like, you know, that scene where Gone Girl harms herself. We will wait for more evidence to come out. But I believe her. We'll talk more. Oh my goodness. But people are, of course, they're going to say, is that AI? And I had to ask too. AI does not believe the photos that have come out are AI. They don't think they're fake. And this officer is saying, look, I was there and I was looking, and this is what I could see. I could also see a small red mark on the upper right-hand corner of the bridge of Jamie's nose. Her nose was visibly not straight and resembled what I have observed through training and experience to be broken. Jaime requested we all speak in the room where her belongings were, which is the Shenandoah room at this location upstairs. Jaime advised sometime between 2300 and midnight, so basically she's saying between 11 p.m. and midnight last night, she had confronted JLR about things she observed on his work phone. She said it was things such as communication with other women and what she described as, pornography. Jaime stated when she addressed this with Jonathan, he became enraged and struck her with a closed fist multiple times on the side of her head, her nose, and her ribs. Jaime stated she grabbed her phone and began to dial 911 for help, but Jonathan saw her doing this, took her phone from her, and said, "I will effing kill you." I asked Jaime if she believed this threat to be true. She stated she believed he would kill her. Jaime stated she believes at some point she lost consciousness after the assault, but remembered Jonathan grabbing 2 bags, his personal cell phone, Jaime's cell phone, and then leaving. How so sad if this is true. I asked Jaime what phone she currently had, and she said it was Jonathan's work phone that he left behind. Did he do that accidentally, or did he say, okay, I'll leave her something? Jaime stated she did not know where he went, but believed he may have taken the white Jeep Compass they rented. I observed a white Jeep Compass to be parked outside prior to making contact with Jaime. I asked Jaime if she'd be willing to have her injuries photographed for documentation. She agreed. Due to most of the medics on scene, and myself to be male, and one of the areas of injury requiring Jaime to lift her shirt, I asked a female medic if she would be willing to take photos of Jaime's injuries with my department-issued cell phone in the bathroom of the hotel room, to which she agreed and completed. These photos will be uploaded for evidence. Upon completion of documenting the injuries, Jaime was transported to the Cascade Medical Center for evaluation. This officer requested Rivercom to put out an ATL for Jonathan, an alert's going out for him. I responded to Cascade Medical Center, met with Jaime in emergency room 3. I asked Jaime if she would be willing to complete a medical release form for documentation of injuries received from the assault. Jaime agreed, and a medical release form was completed, signed, and provided to the medical facility staff. Jaime said Jonathan had been texting the work phone, knowing he left it behind, so he knew. He told Jaime he was 100 miles away from her. Even if he wasn't, I'm sure he was wanting to be, because, you cross state lines and it's harder sometimes, because of state laws to be extradited back to where the alleged crime was committed. So he was 100 miles away from her in the middle of nowhere. Jaime could not confirm the Jeep Compass still parked at the hotel was their rental, but due to it being the only one there and all the other guest vehicles accounted for, this most likely was the vehicle. Jaime believed Jonathan to be most likely still in the area, and their flight leaves tomorrow, which would require them to travel back to Seattle and return the vehicle to the SeaTac airport where it was rented. I was also advised by Jaime that in August of this year, she was on a work trip with Jonathan in Charlotte. So they had been together for a while, but this was when she had first found out about his infidelity and his issues with pornography. She stated she confronted him and he attacked her in the hotel they were staying at. So this was previously in August 2025. So this had been going on, I guess, for months at least. Jaime stated it was similar to this. He assaulted her violently and then took their rental car and drove back to Florida where they live. Jaime stated there was a long history of Jonathan assaulting her in their almost 3-year dating relationship. She stated she knows she should have left many times before this, but hasn't. Jaime stated Jonathan needs to be held accountable for what he did. Yeah, someone had the nerve to say, why'd she stay so long? On Twitter, and I'm like, if you don't understand, imagine your spouse or your loved one right now, how much you love them and you're used to being with them, and all of a sudden they hit you. Heaven forbid. But I'm saying with my ex-husband, I was with him for like 3 years. And I know I should have left earlier. Sometimes you have to plot and plan, and it needs to be the right time to get away. Sometimes you just can't, you don't just announce, I'm leaving you, and there's a lot of emotions involved, financial, it's a lot, But after Jaime was discharged from Cascade Medical Center, I was provided a copy of the medical documents for this visit, and I provided Jaime with a courtesy ride back to her hotel. Deputy McComas and I searched the room prior to Jaime going back into it, making sure JLR is not going to pop out. The on-site manager was contacted, who changed the security code combos for the front door for the room Jaime was staying in. It should be noted that the white Jeep Compass bearing the Washington registration that was observed earlier was confirmed to be another guest rental vehicle and was not involved. So did JLR take their white Compass? Did he take it back to the airport? This is an officer writing, "I have probable cause to arrest Jonathan L. Riches for violating this code in the second degree, domestic violence, harassments, threats to kill DV, interfering with the reporting of DV." Okay, so the next day, on December 26, 2025, I received a text message from Jaime on my department-issued cell phone that she canceled her original flight and booked a flight with a different airline and boarded without issue. So that was smart of her. See the planning it takes. Like, okay, is he in the hotel room anymore? No. Okay, let me switch my flight just in case he's claiming he's 100 miles away. On December 27, 2025, I received a text message from Jaime on my department-issued cell phone that she was finally able to track Jonathan's location. He was traveling through North Dakota, so he was driving back, I guess. It's not known at this time if he's driving back to Florida or a different location. That's all those documents. I noticed, there was some stuff I had to redact. I screenshotted them and put them on Facebook if you want to see those, because I was redacting out, of course, addresses and all that other personal info. So now we move on to where Jaime lives in Arkansas in this Garland County Circuit Court, the Pasco Sheriff Office. Party being served, Jonathan Lee Riches. He was served January 23rd, 2026 at 8:06 a.m. in Florida. This order of temporary protection. So Jaime, is explaining everything that she alleges she has gone through, and she wants to be protected. And I don't blame her. Those photos look harrowing. There's the ex parte order of protection, February 17th, 2026, lots of details. Some of this, they'll have some handwritten stuff. She gives a little bit more insight. There's her petition for her order of protection. Again, all this stuff started coming through at the start of 2026. Now, this is the 7-page document where she explains beginning January 2023 and continuing through Christmas Day 2025. So in essence, 3 years. The start of 2023, 2024, 2025. I'm not sure when she started appearing on his YouTube channel, but she says during basically that 3-year period, done Christmas Day. What a Christmas, my goodness. I was involved in an intimate domestic partnership with the respondent, Jonathan Lee Riches. During the course of this relationship, the respondent engaged in a persistent and escalating pattern of domestic abuse, coercive control, intimidation, financial exploitation, and physical violence towards me. So on Christmas Day, she's saying he violently assaulted me, causing extreme injuries, including broken nose and septum, significant trauma to my head and ribs, requiring emergency care, CT scans, x-rays, and will require reconstructive surgery to repair broken and crushed bones in my nose. Oh my goodness. Now it's asterisked and it says this assault is currently pending felony assault charges. Threats to kill with the Chief Criminal Deputy Prosecutor in Chelan County, Washington State. So that's what a lot of people are saying. Oh, if he really did this, why isn't he in jail? He's been in front of Nancy Guthrie's house for weeks and weeks. Well, we have to let justice take its course. That officer found probable cause out west, so it doesn't mean Arizona authorities would necessarily just pick him up. There's a lot of states involved. This happened allegedly in Washington State. Jaime is in Garland County, so she's in Arkansas. JLR home base is Florida. So people are just like, why didn't they just grab him in Arizona? Is that why he spent so much time in Arizona, away from Florida? I don't know. Throughout the relationship, the respondent physically assaulted me on numerous occasions, including strangulation approximately 24 times. Let's talk about that. 24 times, about 24 times strangulation in 3 years. Oh my goodness. We'll talk about it more. In August 2025, respondent committed a brutal assault against me, involving beating me repeatedly with his closed fist. So that was the first time she confronted him allegedly about infidelity and all this stuff on his phone. Respondent threatened to kill me if I reported his assaults or if I called 911. Since Christmas felony assault, respondent has continued to abuse me using fear, threats, intimidation, ongoing financial abuse, theft of all our joint funds in an act of retaliation. Respondent fled the crime scene, fled the jurisdiction, and remains a flight risk. He has continued to contact me. I'm in fear of immediate harm and death. I mean, that is just scary. Whoa, Okay, 24 times allegedly being strangled. The thing I think about with that is, thank God she survived, if all of this is true again. And secondly, some people believe this is a fake report because people look at Jaime's history. So I want to address that really quickly. First, let's talk about Magnolia's Twitter statements after all of this came out. She wrote, I wanted to acknowledge I'm obviously aware that the Chelan County domestic violence report from Christmas Day and my protection order case, they've come to light. The New York Post reached out to me yesterday and I answered some of the questions they had for the story they were working on. Yeah, in that story, I just remember briefly, she said, yeah, JLR, he doesn't really care about the victims and he gets excited when there's a school shooting and he's like, oh, let's go, it's a chance to make money. She wrote, the police report speaks for itself. This has been extremely traumatizing beyond words, and withdrawing completely felt like the safest way for me to begin the long journey of healing. I've had the support of family, police, doctors, advocates, and my therapist. Being thrown into the role of survivor has been the hardest thing I've ever endured. The impact this has had on my life is immeasurable, and I know it's not something that will ever fully go away. I know the road ahead will be long, but I'm taking it one day and one task at a time. I want to assure everyone that I'm safe now. I did have surgery to repair my nose, and it appears to have been successful, but I won't know for several months if further treatment is needed. I do know I'm very lucky to be alive, and I don't take that for granted. Rio is also safe. She posted a photo of the dog because there were some rumors about, oh no, is the dog dead? Did he kill the dog? Which would be crazy. It's already crazy to try and wrap our minds around this anyway, from a guy you thought was, okay, yeah, he did some bad fraud stuff in his past, but we never knew about any violence allegedly associated with him. At least I didn't until I'm reading these accusations. So she says Rio is safe, and it's crazy people were saying, oh, did he harm their dog or whatever? But she's like, Rio is safe and has been with me through everything. He was not harmed aside from being exposed to the violence. I don't intend to rehash this publicly, but I do want to say that I'm incredibly grateful for the support I've received and for the many people who've reached out over these last couple of months out of concern for my well-being. Some people are doing things intentionally. Now I understand if people are saying, let's wait, let's just play out, let's hear all sides. I understand. But some people are intentionally saying, oh, she is lying, she's making this up. And there's this Christmas Day photo she posted from, it looks like, from the All Seasons River Inn. And someone intentionally took a screenshot of it and was like, oh, is this you the next day? If you actually look at the time of the tweet when it was posted, and I believe she explains this, you can see based on the time it's obviously before the police report, before the event allegedly happened. And that's just when the tweet was posted. We don't even know how early the photos were literally taken. You know how you can have photos on your phone and then you're like, oh, later that night you might post them. It is, taken by the rock fireplace and All Seasons River Inn and all about their food. This is the article that's making people doubt Magnolia's story, which is weird because the same people who are like, oh yeah, JLR may have lied in the past and, he's turned his life around. You guys shouldn't be blaming him for anything. Some of them didn't know about these newest allegations, I'll admit. The same people saying that are dogging out Magnolia for lying in the past when she worked with Project Veritas for this little undercover sting operation. I don't know, it's a trip. So back in November 2017, the Washington Post had said a woman tried to give the paper a false story about this embattled GOP Senate candidate Roy Moore. So it indicates the woman was attempting to deceive the paper as part of the undercover sting, likely by this conservative activist. According to the Post, a woman by the name Jaime Phillips reached out to one of the paper's reporters earlier that month with a claim that Moore, who was battling these harassment charges, allegations from women who claimed they were teenagers at the time. So Jaime was allegedly pitching this story or whatever. Oh yeah, he impregnated me in 1992 when she was only 15 and they didn't bring the baby to term and all that. But the Post began fact-checking Jaime's story, her allegations, and they were inconsistent and all that. They were able to trace Jaime back to Project Veritas. an organization formed by James O'Keefe, and it targets mainstream media outlets. They use deceptive tactics like covert video recordings. You guys might remember all those Project Veritas, projects exposing what they say is media bias. So you can read all that, but people are pointing to that Seoul incident to say, okay, that happened, back in 2017. That means everything she's ever done or said is a lie. Some people might really kind of believe her. Maybe some people are so attached to JLR, maybe they're just like, there's no room in my mind to believe this. Like, I don't want to close off any option. I know which way I'm leaning. Obviously, I'll tell you the truth. I'm leaning towards believing Jaime. But I'm also getting and requesting, rather, more evidence. But I'm believing her. The photos look real. Her story sounds real. But again, yes, we do have to keep a mind open. I'm not using that 2017 incident to say she lies about everything, just like I gave JLR the benefit of the doubt. And what I wanted to talk about is those, 24 whatever strangulations. The thing that's hard that I had to come to grips with is, okay, yeah, I knew his history. You take a person with a grain of salt, you're like, okay, I know he's not a choir boy. But okay, he says he's turned over a new leaf. Was it all a facade in terms of, oh, this animal, you guys, what should I buy him? This dog looks like he needs food. Come on, guys, chat, tell me what to buy. Oh, here I go to the pet store, getting this pet some food. And then you're like, wow, okay, yeah, he cares even about animals, I'm thinking. And then, oh, he's willing to drive wherever to cover a case. Yes, he really cares about victims. I've never seen any DV allegations associated with his name. And that's what I wonder. On one side, is it because was he holding in his true self so much, putting up such a fake facade, in front of YouTube, whatever, 10 hours a day, playing Mr. Nice Guy, that when he got home and he's with Magnolia and she's confronting him about stuff maybe he doesn't want to answer to, the rage comes out, all this pent-up rage. And I'm sure she loved him, and that's why she likely stayed with him, and maybe she thought it was wonderful to begin with. We get to travel, we get to cover cases, we get to do this. It's meant to be. On the other hand, the naysayers are like, oh, did she punch herself? Did she break her own nose? Or are the photos fake? Let's get to JLR's response. That seems like that's the insinuation here. So there's been motions for continuances. There have been hearings going on, and apparently now people are like, okay, that's why he's had to fly back, east and couldn't stay in front of Nancy's house forever. There was the St. Patty's Day hearing. That's when this started really coming out. It's like, whoa, I didn't know all this was going on. Again, order of continuance. So the next thing we'll see is the April 21st hearing. Order of protections have been granted, papers served and all that. So now let's get to basically JLR responding, through his lawyer. February 24th, 2026. Motion to require identification of corroborating records and witness list. So Jaime is the petitioner and Jonathan, JLR, is literally the respondent. Comes now JLR by and through his lawyer, basically. He wants proof. So this is his response. Basically, Magnolia has obtained, she got it, this order of protection, and a final hearing is pending. Magnolia's sworn affidavit alleges serious criminal conduct and significant physical injury and references purported felony assault charges pending in Chelan County, Washington, along with allegations of strangulations, repeated assaults, and related claims. JLR intends to proceed to hearing and to test the allegations through cross-examination and by presentation of documentary evidence. So, in essence, JLR, or through his attorney, he knows the legal game now. I guess he thinks he can win. He's going to cross-examine this alleged victim and presenting documentary evidence. However, the allegations described in the affidavit are largely asserted to have occurred outside Arkansas, and involve third-party records and potential third-party witnesses, law enforcement, medical providers, other persons. To ensure fundamental fairness, permit orderly preparation for the hearing, avoid surprise, and streamline issues for adjudication, JLR requests that Magnolia be required to identify the records and witnesses she contends corroborate the allegations in her affidavit, including any law enforcement reports. I'm sure she'll get those, charging documents, medical records, photographs, communications, and witnesses. Yeah, I'm sure she can get all that. JLR is not seeking adjudication of the merits through this motion. Rather, he seeks a reasonable pre-hearing identification of purported corroboration so the court may consider reliable evidence at the hearing and the parties may efficiently subpoena records as necessary. Yeah, good idea. I mean, with her calling 911, with her going to the hospital, with law enforcement and emergency personnel observing everything, she'll have all that. This request is consistent with the court's inherent authority to manage its docket and conduct a fair hearing, further supported by disclosure and discovery principles reflected in Arkansas code and subpoena mechanisms. So, this is what JLR is requesting: an order requiring Magnolia to file and serve a written identification of the following criminal case records for each alleged incident reported to law enforcement. Well, I don't know how many she reported, maybe just the one. The agency name, report number, date of report, jurisdiction, location of report, name and badge number, if known, of the responding officers. For the alleged incident dated December 25th, 2025, the agency name and report, an incident case, whether any arrest occurred, and if so, by whom and when. He knows an arrest didn't occur because he didn't get arrested because he allegedly left or fled or whatever you want to call it. The case number for any criminal proceeding, the name and office of any prosecutor allegedly assigned, whether any warrant or criminal no-contact order exists, and identifying numbers. Identify any documentation that Magnolia contends establishes pending felony assault charges, including any charging info, complaint, indictment, probable cause statement, docket sheet, warrant, victim witness notice. This is all good stuff. We saw where that officer said, "I have probable cause to arrest Jonathan Elriches." That's what the officer said. Medical records, photos, injury evidence. He wants to ID each medical provider or facility that treated Magnolia's for injuries allegedly caused by JLR, including the facility's provider's name, city, states, dates of service, and this Christmas Day incident, facility, provider, name, location, type of imaging, diagnoses that Magnolia contends were made, photos, videos, media depicting alleged injuries, including the date taken, the person who took them, communications and or contact evidence, identification of any communications Magnolia contends support her allegations of threats, intimidation, harassment, or continued contact. The platform, SMS, mail, email, phone call, social media, date range, the account identifiers, phone numbers, email, ID of any preserved screenshots or recordings, device account which they are stored. With Magnolia being in true crime, I'm sure she knows how to save evidence. Financial allegations, identification of the financial accounts that Magnolia contends were impacted by theft of joint funds, including financial institution name, last 4 digits of account number, dates, disputed amounts, the basis for the claim that JLR lacked authorization. ID of any police reports, civil filings related to the theft of financial abuse, a witness list of each person Magnolia intends to call at the final hearing, including name, city, state, residence, general subject matter, ID of any witnesses who have first-hand knowledge of the alleged incidents, including whether they're eyewitnesses, first responders, treating providers, recipients of outcry statements. JLR also wants Magnolia to be permitted to provide reasonable redactions of non-party personal identifiers, social security numbers, account numbers, provided it remains sufficient to allow JLR to subpoena the described records and prepare for the hearing. And JLR further requests that if Magnolia fails to timely comply, the court consider appropriate remedies, including but not limited to limiting Magnolia's ability to rely on unidentified records or witnesses at hearings or continuing the hearing for the limited purpose of permitting subpoenas to issue. So there we go. Wherefore, JLR respectfully requests the court enter an order requiring Magnolia to identify corroborating records and witnesses as set forth above, and for all other just and proper relief. Respectfully submitted, Jonathan Richards, basically through his attorney, Jaime Beal. So that was e-filed. In essence, we're saying that is his response. He hasn't said stuff online like she's lying, I didn't do it, or anything. The last thing we have are these order of continuances. We have that motion. I mean, we do see that she got her 3-year no contact order in this judge's note, but we don't see anything else yet. So I will keep track, of course, of this case. And April 21st should be a doozy. Whew. And I want to check my email too, because I've been in communication about some of this evidence. Okay, I'm starting to get some documents. I will put anything I receive, most likely, in a separate video, because I've done a ton of public records requests. I just want to close with Isaiah 57:11-12. Whom have you so dreaded and feared that you have not been true to me, and have neither remembered me nor taken this to heart? Is it not because I have long been silent that you do not fear me? I will expose your righteousness and your works, and they will not benefit you. So the truth, whatever it is, will win out. We cannot convict a person based on, of course, allegations and photos. We have to let it play through court. We can't, in my opinion, chase money, have a love of money, not have justice in mind. As we cover these cases, we have to have empathy for the victims. We have to want to see justice done. That's how I'm feeling in this case. We have a responsibility getting on here, like me talking to you. Just being the person I am when I turn off the camera. It's like a mind warp to think of a person where you believe, you kind of know their vibe and their spirit, and okay, yeah, maybe they're okay, and then to hear allegations like this. Imagine someone potentially, according to Magnolia, for example, going to the scene of these horrific crime cases, saying they have so much sympathy and empathy for these victims, whether adult victims, child victims, whomever, victims of domestic violence, and then going home and doing the same thing allegedly to your girlfriend. Of course, some people will think, oh, she knew that would take him down, and that's why she did this all to herself, and just to take him down, just to get revenge. I don't know about all that. What we see in JLR's reply is he's fighting through his attorney. Okay, give me all the evidence, and maybe he will fight this to the bitter end. But I'm also glad that Magnolia really did call the police. She called 911. She experienced, according to her, a horrible attack in August upon confrontation, and some people don't like to be confronted, and there's no right to put your hands on anybody, male or female, if they're confronting you. It's better to walk away. She says she was horribly attacked in August by JLR. Now she's saying she was horribly attacked Christmas Day 2025 by JLR. She claims he left. If this is true, was he living this dual life and never turned his life around and truly is this violent man that Magnolia describes? Did he go off and, I'm covering these cases, for example, let's say Suzanne Morphew or whatever he's covered, I don't know. Yeah, Suzanne Morphew, justice for Suzanne, this wife who was harmed by her husband. And could it be that it's like, I'm not calling him a murderer by any stretch of the imagination, but Magnolia is claiming he threatened to kill her. That's serious allegations. All this repair work, Am I sitting up here willing to believe she punched herself and did all this stuff? To me, that's a bridge too far. But again, as a jury member, if I were on a jury, I would have to sit and get all the evidence, listen to all the evidence. That's what I want to do. I want to know everything. I want to know the truth. I don't like people nitpicking if they want to take the side of an alleged abuser. Let's say they're already, oh, I'm going over there, or, I'm so staunchly over here, or wherever. Don't do it by lying. Don't do it by questioning. Of course it's okay to question facts, but some people are already like, well, why didn't she call immediately? It did say she may have been unconscious for a while, but maybe she did, if this were true, was really beat up, and then did she just go unconscious, did she wake up and lay there and say, oh, what should I do? Should I really call? Should I not? Did she, you know, a lot of victims never call. Like I said, when I went through my horrible relationship with my ex, I don't ever remember calling 911. That was never even a thought in my mind. I guess I just thought about staying safe and getting away from him. I'm not saying Magnolia did the wrong thing. I think she did the right thing. Anyone should call. And I'm not putting my experiences and, you know, confirmation bias on this situation. But I do see people taking hard lines, and I hope they aren't doing it just to, I don't know, firm it up because they still want to watch him or whatever the excuse is. I know he's losing subscribers, I've seen that, and I'm not telling you not to watch him. I know a lot of people watched him for Nancy Guthrie's case, but I think it was just the irony, the dichotomy of what could be playing out here. A true crime YouTuber who's willing to go, all these places cover the case because they claim to care so much. Could that be the same personality who flips a switch and attacks his girlfriend of 3 years when the cameras are off? Turnabout is fair play. We all cover cases. This is now, you know, made it into the court system. So it's a DV case with allegations, and let's follow it to the bitter end. Let's see what happens. I hope all that made sense. I'll put more stuff in an upcoming video. Gotta get more ducks in a row here. Thank you for watching.